What's the secret that I learned? Well, it comes from our founder, and I've shared this with some of you before, that he knew that the business of business ultimately is people. Well, wait a minute, some of you MBAs out there are thinking, well, wait a minute, you got to have a strategy. You got to produce a product that you can market and sell for more than what it costs, because you got to have a profit, and you got to have good marketing, you got to have good finance, you got to have a good legal program system, you got to have accounting, got all the things that the MBAs go to school for, and that's true. You got to have all that. But what Herb Kelleher recognized and infused in us, those of us who are fortunate enough to serve him and his successor, a wonderful leader named Gary Kelly, who has served us well since 2004. I keep saying us in present tense. I'm retired, but it's hard to squeeze it out of my DNA. But what Herb knew is, while yes, you've got to have strategy and all that other things that go along with successful business enterprise, he understood what Joseph Grenny, an author, said that I picked up. He said there's no strategy so brilliant that people can't figure out a way to screw it up. That's what Herb knew. And so if you're going to be a people company where the business of business is people, the question is, well, how do you do that? Well, Herb's approach, Herb's strategy, Herb's wisdom, Herb's philosophy, that he knew that over time, a company that is bound by love is stronger than one that is bound by fear. Well, that point was never made more clear to me than my first day at work in June 10th, 1988. You see, I was 35 years old, and I had worked for two other Fortune 500 companies, one out of college for 6 years, another one for 4 or 5 years. Then I'd been around CEOs, and I was a staffer, kind of a grunt, young MBA and blah, 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 and I kind of was 23, 26, an analyst and a manager, and I'd get on the elevator, and it was Mr. CEO, and you don't talk to him, and it wasn't an overt fear, but it was basically, yikes, there's the big guy, there's the boss. And so my first day at work at Southwest Airlines as Director of Marketing, June 10th, 1988, not that I remember that detail, the Vice President of Marketing says, well, today at 4 o'clock we have a Herb meeting. And I said, well, what's a Herb meeting? I'd met Herb in my interview, but well, once a month we sit down with Herb, the advertising agency comes in, and the marketing department, 8 or 10 of the leaders in marketing, and we look at new ads and talk about strategy and talk about competition. And I said, well, I ought to start a meeting at 4 o'clock with the CEO. Just go, I'm assuming, was this an hour, not 2 hours? And he said, oh, no. We always bring in dinner. Sometimes it lasts till 7:30 or 8, usually 9, and sometimes it's gone to midnight. And I'm going, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? This is the CEO. Yeah, it's Herb Kelleher, but we're going to meet for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours with the CEO, and already, it was 8:30 in the morning, my first day, and I didn't even think to present, and already the sweat had broken out under my arms. You been there? Can you imagine? I walked out of that office building at 10:45 that night, and literally my jaws hurt because I had laughed so much over that 6+ hours. And I had seen this lived out day one, a CEO who created a bond with his team because he told stories, he smoked several packs of cigarettes, he had a little shot of wild turkey about 6:30. His eyes blazed when we talked about strategy and how we're going to crush those guys out there in Phoenix. And then turned around and said, to somebody on the advertising agency's team from Austin, Texas, and said, well, tell me, I know your daughter was recently in the hospital for knee surgery. The CEO knows the creative director's daughter was in the hospital in Austin, Texas, and we're in Dallas, and what's going on here? I didn't want to make a career working for a big company. That's why I had left those two other organizations where I worked for CEOs, self-important. And I really kind of got forced into Southwest. I was a commercial real estate broker. No, actually, I was a commercial real estate broke for the first several years after my big company experience. I didn't want to go work for a big organization, but I had to have a job. And so I took this job at Southwest, and I get to meet with the CEO for 6 hours on the first day at work, and I go, something's different here. This isn't Kansas, Toto. And because he reached into I saw him reach into the heart of the people in that room. And I knew within 90 days of working at Southwest that if I, my wife, my 6-year-old daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, and my 6-week-old son, if we were walking down the street and a grenade rolled in front of us, I knew Herb Kelleher would cross the street and fall on it for me. You don't think I didn't spend the next years doing everything I could for that man? Just like I did when his successor, Gary Kelly. Not as an Irishman, by the way, both Irish. I don't know what that had anything to do with it. But Gary Kelly cares for me and cares for his people in very much the same way. You see, a company is stronger if it's bound by love rather than fear. And that leads to a leadership style that comes from the heart.